February 7th, 2018. Deir ez-Zor province, eastern Syria, the Euphrates River Valley. The night is cold and moonless. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Hendricks crouches behind a reinforced berm at the edge of a small outpost, his breath forming small clouds in the desert air. Around him, the compound is a patchwork of HESCO barriers, sandbags, and hastily erected fighting positions. This isn't a permanent base, it's a forward operating position, barely more than a foothold in the Syrian dust. Hendricks and his SEAL team are here as advisors, embedded with Syrian democratic forces who've been pushing ISIS remnants out of the oil-rich region along the river. The radio on his vest crackles with static. He adjusts the frequency dial, scanning through the usual chatter, Arabic voices from SDF positions, occasional English from other American units scattered across the province. Then something different cuts through. Russian. Hendricks freezes. His hand instinctively moves to the push-to-talk button, but he doesn't press it yet. He listens. The voice is calm, professional, using military terminology, grid coordinates, movement reports, time hacks. Actual, this is Hendricks, he says quietly into his headset, switching to the team's internal channel. I've got Russian comms on the net, multiple speakers. They're coordinating something. Lieutenant Jake Rourke, the team leader, appears beside him within seconds, his rifle slung across his chest. Say again? Hendricks hands him a spare headset. Rourke plugs it into the radio receiver and listens. His jaw tightens. The Russian voices continue. They're not trying to hide. They're not encrypted. It's as if they don't expect anyone to be listening or don't care. One voice mentions American positions. Another confirms movement in 30 minutes. A third asks about artillery support. Rourke pulls the headset off and looks at Hendricks. Wagner. The word hangs in the air like a curse. The Wagner Group. Russian mercenaries. Officially, they don't exist. Unofficially, they're Moscow's deniable arm in Syria, fighting alongside Assad's forces, securing oil fields, doing the dirty work the Kremlin can't officially sanction. The SEALs have heard the stories. Brutal, experienced fighters, many of them former Russian special forces, and now they're talking on open comms, coordinating an operation that seems to be aimed directly at this position. Hendricks scans the darkness beyond the perimeter. The desert stretches out in every direction, flat and featureless except for the occasional cluster of buildings and the dark ribbon of the Euphrates a few kilometers to the north. Somewhere out there, a force is moving, a force that speaks Russian and knows exactly where the Americans are. How many? Rourke asks. Hendricks shakes his head. Can't tell from the comms. But they're talking about multiple vehicles, infantry elements, and fire support. This isn't a probe. This is an assault. Rourke keys his radio. All elements, this is actual. We have credible intel of an imminent attack on our position. Russian-speaking forces, likely Wagner Group, approaching from the west. I want eyes on all sectors. Get the SDF commanders up here now. The outpost comes alive. SEALs move to their positions with practiced efficiency. Night vision devices flip down. Weapon systems are checked. The handful of American special operators, maybe a dozen in total, spread out along the defensive line, reinforcing the SDF fighters who make up the bulk of the garrison. Hendricks returns to the radio, cycling through frequencies, trying to get a clearer picture. The Russian voices are more frequent now, more urgent. He catches fragments, call signs, distance markers, references to the target. Then a new voice, deeper, with an edge of command. All units, advance on my mark. Engage and destroy American positions. No prisoners. Hendricks feels his pulse quicken. This isn't a misunderstanding. This isn't a mistake. This is a deliberate attack on US forces by a Russian-backed mercenary army. Rourke is already on the satellite phone, speaking rapidly to higher command. Confirmed Russian comms, imminent attack, requesting immediate air support and artillery. We are outnumbered and need everything you can send. The desert wind picks up, carrying with it the faint sound of engines, distant, growing closer. Hendricks chambers around and settles into his position, his rifle aimed into the darkness. Somewhere out there, the Wagner Group is coming, and they have no idea what they are about to walk into. The sound of engines grows louder. Hendricks adjusts his night vision, scanning the western approach. At first, there's nothing, just the green-tinted emptiness of the Syrian desert. Then, movement, dust clouds rising in the distance, backlit by the faint glow of headlights that someone forgot to turn off, or simply doesn't care about concealing. "I've got vehicles," calls out Petty Officer Second Class Devon Wright, from a position 20 metres to Hendricks' left. Multiple contacts bearing 270, range approximately 3 kilometres and closing. Rourke moves along the line, his voice calm but urgent. "Hold fire. Let them close. I want positive ID before anyone engages." The SDF fighters are nervous. Hendricks can see it in their movements. The way they grip their AK-47s a little too tightly, the way they keep glancing back toward the center of the compound as if calculating escape routes. They've fought ISIS, they've survived barrel bombs and chemical attacks, but this is different. Everyone knows the Russians don't take prisoners, and Wagner has a reputation that precedes them. Hendricks keeps one ear on the Russian radio traffic. The communications are becoming more tactical now, more immediate. First element in position. Second element moving to flank. Prepare for contact. He does a quick mental calculation. Based on the radio chatter, he's counting at least 5 separate units coordinating the attack. If each unit is platoon-sized, 20 to 30 fighters, that puts the attacking force somewhere between 100 and 150 combatants, maybe more. The American contingent at the outpost, 12 SEALs, 3 Marine Corps artillery observers, and roughly 40 SDF fighters of varying combat effectiveness. The math is not good. "Actual, this is Hendricks," he says into his radio. "Based on comms intercept, I'm estimating enemy force strength at Company Plus. They're coordinating a multi-axis assault. We're looking at 5 to 1 odds, minimum." Rourke's response is immediate. "Copy. Air support is inbound. ETA 15 minutes. Artillery is spinning up now. We hold until the cavalry arrives. 15 minutes. In combat, that's an eternity." The vehicles are closer now, close enough that Hendricks can make out individual shapes through his night vision. Technicals, pickup trucks with heavy machine guns mounted in the beds. BTR-80 armoured personnel carriers. A T-72 tank, its turret traversing slowly as it advances. This isn't a ragtag militia. This is a mechanised assault force with armour support. "Jesus," Wright mutters. "They brought a tank." One of the Marine artillery observers, Staff Sergeant Kyle Brennan, is on his radio coordinating with the firebase 10 kilometres to the east. Fire mission, Grid November, Victor 347821, enemy armour and infantry in the open, request immediate suppression. The Russian voices on Hendricks' radio suddenly shift. A new tone. Excitement. American position confirmed. All units, weapons free. Attack, attack, attack. The night erupts. Muzzle flashes blink in the darkness as the Wagner force opens fire. Tracer rounds arc across the desert, green and red streaks cutting through the black. Heavy machine gun fire rakes the berm, kicking up geysers of sand and dirt. The distinctive crack of AK-47s mixes with the deeper thump of a 14.5mm heavy machine gun. "Contact west," Rourke shouts, though everyone already knows. "Return fire, controlled pairs, make your shots count." Hendricks acquires a target, a fighter dismounting from a technical 400 metres out. He squeezes the trigger twice. The figure drops. He shifts to the next target, fires again. The discipline of years of training takes over, turning chaos into a rhythm. Breathe, aim, fire, assess, repeat. The SDF fighters are firing now too, their AKS chattering on full auto, burning through magazines with little regard for accuracy. Rourke moves among them, shouting in broken Arabic, trying to impose fire discipline, but it's like trying to hold back the tide. The T-72's main gun booms. The round screams overhead and impacts somewhere behind the compound, the explosion shaking the ground. Too high. They're still ranging in. "Tank, tank, bearing 285, someone yells. One of the SEALs, Petty Officer First Class Aaron Vasquez, is already moving, hauling an AT-4 anti-tank rocket to a firing position. He extends the tube, flips up the sights, and takes a knee. Backblast area clear. The rocket launches with a whoosh and a flash, streaking across the desert. It impacts the T-72's frontal armour and detonates. For a moment, Hendricks thinks it's a kill, but then the tank keeps moving, smoke trailing from its glacis plate but still operational. Shit, frontal armor's too thick. Vasquez drops the spent tube and grabs his rifle. The Wagner force is spreading out now, infantry dismounting from the BTRS and advancing in a skirmish line. They're good, moving with tactical proficiency, using cover, suppressing the American positions with coordinated fire. These aren't amateurs. These are professional soldiers. Brennan's voice cuts through the chaos. Shot out! Shot out! 30 seconds. Hendricks counts down in his head. The incoming artillery will buy them time, but it won't be enough. Not against this many. Not against armor. The Russian radio crackles again. A voice, confident, almost amused. Americans are pinned. Continue the assault. We'll be drinking in their compound within the hour. Hendricks looks at Rourke. The lieutenant's face is set, determined. He's on the satellite phone again, and this time Hendricks can hear the urgency in his voice. I don't care what the ROE says. We are in contact with a superior force and we need everything. Apaches, fast movers, AC-130, everything. If you don't authorize it, we're going to be overrun. Do you understand? We need it now. A pause. Then Rourke's expression changes. Relief mixed with something darker. Something final. He lowers the phone and keys the team radio. All elements, this is actual. Fire support is authorized. Danger close. Full package inbound. Hold your positions and keep your heads down. The hammer is about to drop. Hendricks allows himself a grim smile. The Wagner Group thinks they're about to overrun an isolated American outpost. They have no idea what's coming. The first artillery rounds arrive like the fist of God. Brennan's fire mission lands 200 meters west of the perimeter, a cluster of 155mm high-explosive shells that detonate in rapid succession, each one a miniature sun blooming in the darkness. The shock waves roll across the desert, and even from behind the berm, Hendricks feels the concussive force in his chest. Two of the technicals disappear in the barrage. A BTR-80 slews sideways, its left track blown off, smoke pouring from its hull. The advancing infantry scatter, diving for whatever cover they can find in the flat terrain. But they don't retreat. They're still coming, Wright shouts, firing controlled bursts into the dust and smoke. The Wagner force regroups with disturbing speed. The T-72 fires again, and this time the round hits closer, impacting the HESCO barrier 30 meters to Hendricks' right. The explosion sends sandbags and debris flying. One of the SDF fighters is thrown backward, screaming, clutching his leg. Hendricks keeps his focus on the Russian radio traffic. The voices are more strained now, shouting over the sound of explosions, but still coordinated. Push through the artillery. They can't sustain that rate of fire. Get to close range and they won't risk hitting their own people. It's a sound tactical assessment. If the Wagner force can close the distance, get inside the minimum safe range for artillery and air support, they can turn this into a close quarters fight, where their numerical superiority will decide the outcome. Rourke knows it too. Brennan, walk that fire closer. I want it on top of them. Danger close, LT. We're talking 50 meters from our position. I don't care. Do it. Brennan relays the coordinates. The next salvo lands even closer, so close that shrapnel pings off the HESCO barriers and dirt rains down on the defenders. But it works. The Wagner advance falters again. Infantry going to ground, vehicles halting to reassess. Rourke is back on the satellite phone, coordinating with the Tactical Operations Center. I need that air support now. What's the ETA on the Apaches? Hendricks can't hear the response, but he sees Rourke's jaw clench. 5 minutes is too long. We need them now. Yes, I understand the flight time, but... He stops, listens. Okay. What about the AC-130? Roger, standing by. He lowers the phone and moves to Hendricks' position, crouching beside him. Apaches are 5 minutes out. A C-130 is orbiting at altitude, waiting for clearance to engage. Fast movers are being scrambled from Al Udeid. What's the hold-up on the gunship? Hendricks asks, dropping an empty magazine and slamming a fresh one into his rifle. Politics, Rourke says, and the word tastes like poison. CENTCOM wants confirmation that we're engaging non-Russian regular forces. They're worried about escalation. Hendricks stares at him. We're being attacked by a company-sized element with armor support, and they're worried about escalation? I know. Rourke's voice is tight. But I just got the green light. Rules of engagement are lifted. We are authorized to use all available assets to defend this position. No restrictions. The words hang in the air for a moment, heavy with implication. No restrictions. In the calculus of modern warfare, that's as close to a blank check as it gets. Rourke keys the radio to the command frequency. Reaper 6, this is Anvil 1 actual. Requesting immediate fire support, all available assets. Target is enemy armor and infantry. Grid, November. Victor 347821. Friendlies are marked with IR strobes. Cleared hot, I say again, cleared hot. The response comes back immediately, a calm voice from somewhere high above. Anvil 1 actual, this is Reaper 6. Copy all? We have your position marked. Beginning engagement run. Keep your heads down. Hendricks looks up. He can't see the AC-130 Spectre gunship. It's orbiting at 20,000 feet, invisible in the night sky. But he knows it's there, and he knows what's about to happen. The AC-130U is a flying artillery battery, a 105mm howitzer, a 40mm Bofors cannon, and a 25mm Gatling gun, all mounted in the side of a modified cargo plane, all aimed by thermal imaging and laser targeting systems that can pick out a human being from 4 miles away. In the dark, against an enemy in the open, it's not a weapon, it's an execution. All elements, this is actual, Rourke broadcast on the team net. Danger close air support inbound. Get down and stay down. Mark your positions with IR strobes. If you don't have a strobe, do not leave cover. The SEALS activate their infrared markers, invisible to the naked eye but blazing like beacons through night vision and thermal optics. The SDF fighters huddle behind the barriers, some of them praying, others simply staring into the darkness with wide eyes. The Wagner force is still advancing. The T-72 has resumed its approach, grinding forward at a walking pace, its machine guns raking the American position. Infantry move in its wake, using the tank as a shield. They're 300 meters out now, close enough that Hendricks can see individual faces through his optics, bearded, hard-eyed men in mismatched uniforms and tactical gear. The Russian radio crackles. All units, final push. Overrun the position on my mark. 3, 2. The voice never gets to 1. The AC-130's 105mm howitzer fires. The round hits the T-72 dead center. The tank doesn't just explode, it disintegrates. The turret lifts off the chassis in a gout of flame and tumbles end over end through the air before crashing down 50 meters away. The hull becomes a funeral pyre, ammunition cooking off in secondary explosions that light up the desert like daylight. Before the echo of the first shot fades, the 40mm Bofors opens up. It fires in a steady rhythm, thump, 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 each round impacting with surgical precision. A BTR explodes, a technical flips onto its side, burning. A cluster of infantry disappears in a series of overlapping detonations. Then the 25mm Gatling gun joins in, and the night becomes a symphony of destruction. The gun fires so fast it sounds like a continuous roar, a buzzsaw tearing through metal and flesh. Tracer rounds pour down from the sky in a solid stream of light, sweeping across the Wagner positions like a searchlight made of death. Hendricks watches through his night vision, transfixed. The Wagner force is being systematically annihilated. Vehicles explode, infantry are cut down as they run. The desert itself seems to be erupting, geysers of sand and fire rising wherever the gunship's sensors detect movement. The Russian radio traffic has devolved into chaos. Screaming, panicked orders, calls for retreat. Fall back, we're being slaughtered. But there's nowhere to fall back to. The AC-130 is orbiting the battlefield, its sensors tracking every vehicle, every heat signature. Anything that moves dies. Rourke stands beside Hendricks, watching the carnage. His face is illuminated by the fires burning across the desert. Apaches are 2 minutes out, he says quietly, and the fast movers are right behind them. Hendricks nods slowly. The Wagner Group came here to overrun an isolated American position. They came with armor and superior numbers, and the confidence of professional soldiers. They walked into a killing field, and the killing has only just begun. The Apaches arrive like avenging angels. Hendricks hears them before he sees them, the distinctive whop 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 of rotor blades cutting through the night air. 2 AH-64D, Apache longbow attack helicopters sweep in from the east, flying low and fast, their thermal sensors already locked onto the remnants of the Wagner force. The lead Apache opens fire with its M230 chain gun. The 30mm rounds chew through a fleeing BTR like it's made of cardboard, punching through the armor and turning the interior into a shredder. The vehicle lurches to a stop, smoke pouring from a dozen holes, and then explodes as the fuel tank ignites. The second Apache launches a Hellfire missile. The laser-guided weapon streaks across the desert and slams into a cluster of Wagner fighters who've taken cover behind a low ridge. The explosion lifts bodies into the air like ragdolls. When the smoke clears, there's nothing left but a crater. The AC-130 continues its methodical work overhead, the 40mm Bofors firing in steady intervals. Each shot is precise, calculated. A technical trying to escape to the north, destroyed. A group of infantry attempting to regroup near a destroyed BTR, obliterated. The gunship sensors see everything, and nothing escapes. Hendricks shifts his attention back to the Russian radio. The communications have collapsed into pure panic now. We need extraction. We're being massacred. Where is our air support? Command, respond. We need... The transmission cuts off in a burst of static. Another voice, calmer but edged with desperation. All units, break contact and withdraw. I repeat, withdraw to Rally Point Crimson. We cannot hold... The transmission ends abruptly. Hendricks doesn't know if the speaker was killed or simply gave up trying to coordinate a retreat that's turned into a rout. Vasquez appears at Hendricks' shoulder, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. They're running. Look. Through his night vision, Hendricks can see Wagner fighters abandoning their positions, sprinting away from the outpost in every direction. Some are trying to reach vehicles, others are just running into the open desert, desperate to escape the hellfire raining down from above. It doesn't matter. The Apaches hunt them down with cold efficiency. The attack helicopters orbit the battlefield like sharks, their pilots calling out targets to each other in calm, professional voices that Hendricks can hear on the command net. I've got a group of 6, bearing 320, moving north. Roger, I see them. Engaging. The chain gun roars. The 6 figures drop. Target destroyed, moving to next contact. One of the Apaches pivots and launches another Hellfire at a technical that's trying to flee west. The missile covers the distance in seconds, and the vehicle vanishes in a ball of flame. The helicopter doesn't even slow down, already acquiring its next target. Brennan is still coordinating artillery, walking the 155mm rounds across the desert in a systematic pattern, cutting off escape routes, herding the Wagner survivors into kill zones where the air assets can finish them. Fire mission complete, adjusting to grid, November, Victor 3-5. His voice is steady, almost bored, as if he's conducting a training exercise rather than orchestrating a massacre. The SDF fighters have stopped shooting. They're standing now, some of them climbing onto the berms to watch the destruction unfold. A few are cheering, others just stare in silence, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of violence being unleashed. Rourke moves among the SEALs, checking for casualties. Sound off. Anyone hit? Right. Good. Vasquez. Good. Hendricks. Good. One by one, the team reports in. Minor injuries, cuts from shrapnel, bruises from diving for cover, but nothing serious. The SDF took the worst of it. 3 dead, 7 wounded, most from the initial barrage before the American firepower turned the tide. Against a force that came to annihilate them, it's a miracle. Rourke keys the command net. Reaper 6, Anvil 1 actual. Sitrep, enemy force is broken and retreating. Request you continue prosecution of targets. We are secure. Anvil 1, Reaper 6 copies. We have multiple targets still in the area. Continuing engagement. The AC-130's guns thunder again. Somewhere in the darkness, another vehicle explodes. Then Hendricks hears a new sound, the high-pitched scream of jet engines. He looks up and sees nothing, but he knows what it means. Fast movers inbound, Rourke announces. F-15E Strike Eagles from Al Udeid. They're carrying JDAMS, Joint Direct Attack Munitions, 2,000-pound GPS-guided bombs, precision weapons designed to level buildings and destroy hardened targets. The Wagner Group brought a company-sized force with armor support to attack an American position. The United States is responding with the full weight of its military might. The first J-dam hits a kilometre west of the outpost, where thermal imaging has identified a concentration of vehicles and personnel, likely a staging area or command post. The explosion is massive, a mushroom cloud of fire and debris that rises hundreds of feet into the air. The shock wave rolls across the desert seconds later, strong enough that Hendricks has to brace himself against the berm. The second bomb hits 30 seconds later, further north. Another colossal explosion. The ground shakes. Wright lets out a low whistle. They're not just killing them, they're erasing them. It's true. This isn't a battle anymore. It's not even a fight. It's extermination. The Wagner Group walked into a trap of their own making, and now the most powerful military in the world is systematically destroying them. Hendricks cycles through the Russian radio frequencies one more time. Most are silent now. On one channel, he picks up a faint voice, barely audible over static and the sound of explosions. Anyone, please. We need help. They're killing everyone. Then that too goes silent. The Apaches make another pass, their chain guns chattering. The AC-130 continues its orbit, firing whenever its sensors detect movement. The F-15S dropped 2 more JDAMS on targets, identified by forward air controllers, each explosion a punctuation mark in the night. Rourke stands at the edge of the perimeter, watching the fires burn across the desert. Hendricks joins him. How many do you think? Hendricks asks quietly. Rourke is silent for a moment. Based on the initial force estimate? 200, maybe more. And now? Now? Rourke's voice is flat. I don't think many of them are walking away from this. In the distance, another explosion lights up the horizon. The Apaches are hunting down stragglers, pursuing fleeing vehicles into the desert. There will be no escape, no mercy. The Wagner Group came here to kill Americans, and they're paying for it with their lives. Hendricks thinks about the voice on the radio, the one that said they'd be drinking in the American compound within the hour. Confident, arrogant, certain of victory. He wonders if that man is still alive. He doubts it. The battle, if it can even be called that, continues for another 30 minutes. By the time the guns finally fall silent, the desert west of the outpost is a graveyard. Burning vehicles, cratered earth, bodies scattered across the sand. The Wagner Group came with overwhelming force. They met overwhelming firepower, and they were annihilated. Dawn comes slowly to the Syrian desert, the sky lightening from black to deep purple to a pale, washed-out blue. As the sun rises, it illuminates a landscape transformed into hell. Hendricks stands at the western edge of the perimeter, his rifle slung across his chest, surveying the aftermath. The fires have mostly burned themselves out, leaving behind skeletal frames of vehicles and columns of black smoke that rise into the morning air. The smell is overwhelming. Burning metal, diesel fuel, and something else. Something organic that Hendricks tries not to think about. The AC-130 departed an hour ago, its ammunition expended, its mission complete. The Apaches stayed longer, orbiting the battlefield until the sun came up, ensuring no counterattack was forming, no survivors were regrouping. When they finally peeled off and headed back to base, the silence they left behind was profound. Rourke approaches, a satellite phone pressed to his ear. He's been on calls with higher command for the past 2 hours, debriefing, reporting, justifying. His face is drawn, exhausted, but there's a hardness in his eyes that wasn't there yesterday. He ends the call and stands beside Hendricks. For a long moment, neither man speaks. CENTCOM wants a full battle damage assessment, Rourke finally says. They're sending a drone to do aerial reconnaissance, but they want eyes on the ground too. We're going out there. Hendricks nods slowly. When? Now. Get Vasquez and Wright. We'll take an SDF squad for security, but I want our guys doing the actual assessment. 30 minutes later, a small patrol moves out from the outpost. 4 SEALs, 8 SDF fighters, moving cautiously across the desert toward the nearest cluster of destroyed vehicles. The sun is fully up now, the temperature already climbing, the heat shimmering off the sand. The first body they find is 50 meters from the perimeter. A Wagner fighter, face down in the dirt, his back shredded by shrapnel. His rifle lies a few feet away, unfired. Vasquez checks for identification, finds a Russian military ID card, though the name and unit have been blacked out with marker. Standard Wagner practice. Plausible deniability. They move on. The destroyed T-72 is a twisted sculpture of metal, its turret lying upside down 20 meters from the chassis. The heat from the fire is still intense enough that they can't get close. Through the smoke, Hendricks can see what's left of the crew. He looks away. A BTR-80 sits at an angle, its front end collapsed into a crater from a JDAM strike. The rear hatch is open. Inside, Hendricks counts 4 bodies, burned beyond recognition. The vehicle's ammunition has cooked off, leaving the interior a charred shell. Wright is taking photographs, documenting everything. Jesus, he mutters. It's like a scrapyard. They find more bodies as they move west. Some are intact, killed by shrapnel or concussive force. Others are less so. The AC-130's 40mm rounds don't leave much behind. Neither do direct hits from Hellfire missiles. Vasquez is keeping count. 37 confirmed KIA so far, and we've only covered maybe a quarter of the battlefield. An SDF fighter calls out in Arabic, waving them over. He's found a survivor, a Wagner mercenary, badly wounded, lying in the shadow of a destroyed technical. The man's left leg is gone below the knee, tourniqueted with a belt. His face is pale, slick with sweat. He's conscious, barely, his eyes tracking the Americans as they approach. Rourke kneels beside him. Do you speak English? The man's lips move. Yes. His accent is thick, Russian. Water, please. Hendricks hands over his canteen. The man drinks greedily, water spilling down his chin. What unit are you with? Rourke asks. The man's eyes flicker. Private, contractor, security Wagner Group. A pause, then a slight nod. How many of you were there? The man coughs, a wet, rattling sound. 200, maybe more. 3 companies. We were told it would be easy. Just Kurds and a few Americans. We had armor, we had numbers. He coughs again. We had nothing. Why did you attack? Rourke's voice is hard. You knew Americans were here. You knew what would happen. The man's laugh is bitter, broken. We were told you wouldn't fight, that your rules of engagement, you would call for permission. By the time you got approval, we would be gone. We would take the oil fields, and Moscow would deny everything. His eyes close. We were wrong. Rourke stands. He keys his radio. Anvil 1 to base. We have 1 enemy wounded, critical condition. Request medevac. The response is immediate. Anvil 1, medevac is inbound. ETA 10 minutes. The man on the ground opens his eyes again. Why? Why do you help me? Rourke looks down at him. Because we're not you. They leave an SDF fighter to wait with the wounded mercenary and continue the patrol. The scale of the destruction becomes more apparent with every step. Entire vehicles reduced to scrap metal. Craters large enough to hide a car. Bodies scattered across hundreds of meters. Some alone, some in clusters where groups tried to take cover together. Wright stops at one point, staring at a crater where a JDAM hit. There's nothing left, not even pieces. Just gone. Vasquez is still counting. 73, 81, 94. His voice is mechanical, detached. It's the only way to process what they're seeing. They find the command vehicle, or what's left of it, a kilometer west of the outpost. It's a BTR-82A, more heavily armored than the standard model, equipped with communications gear. The AC-130's 105mm howitzer hit it directly. The vehicle is split open like a tin can, its interior exposed. Inside are the remains of at least 6 people, along with radios, maps, and tactical displays. Rourke photographs everything, then radios back to base. Anvil 1 to TOC. We've located what appears to be the enemy command post. Vehicle is destroyed, all personnel killed in action. Recovering intelligence materials now. They spend 20 minutes pulling out documents, hard drives, anything that might provide intelligence value. Maps showing planned attack routes, rosters with names and call signs, communications logs. It's a treasure trove, and it confirms what they already suspected. This was a deliberate, coordinated assault authorized at high levels within the Wagner Group. By the time they complete the patrol and return to the outpost, the sun is high and the heat is brutal. Vasquez delivers his final count to Rourke. 203 confirmed enemy KIA, approximately 30 vehicles destroyed, mix of technicals, BTRs, and one T-72 tank. One wounded enemy captured. Unknown number fled into the desert, but based on the Apache pursuit, I'd estimate minimal survivors. Rourke nods slowly, processing the numbers. He looks at Hendricks. Our casualties? 3 SDF-KIA, 7 wounded, 0 American casualties. The numbers hang in the air. 203 to 3. It's not a battle. It's not even a massacre. It's something else entirely. A demonstration of what happens when a modern military, with total air superiority and unlimited firepower, is given permission to engage without restriction. Rourke's satellite phone rings. He answers, listens. Then his expression changes. Yes, sir. Understood. We'll be ready. He ends the call and turns to the team. That was CENTCOM. They're sending a full investigation team. State Department is involved. CIA is involved. This is going to be a political shitstorm. He pauses. But the general wanted me to pass along a message. Well done. You held your position against a superior force and inflicted catastrophic casualties on a hostile enemy. The entire chain of command is backing us on this. Hendricks feels something loosen in his chest, a tension he didn't realize he was carrying. They did their job. They survived. And despite the overwhelming odds, despite the chaos and the fear, they won. But as he looks out at the smoke still rising from the desert, at the graveyard they've created, he can't help but think about the voice on the Russian radio, the one that said they'd be drinking in the American compound within the hour. The Wagner Group came to Syria thinking they could attack Americans with impunity, thinking that Moscow's backing and their own reputation would be enough. They learned otherwise, and the lesson was written in fire and blood across the Syrian desert. 3 days later, the outpost is unrecognizable. What was once a bare-bones forward position is now a fortified compound crawling with personnel. Military intelligence officers pore over the recovered documents and hard drives. Forensic teams catalogue the dead. A mobile command center has been erected in the center of the compound, its satellite dishes and antennas bristling like quills. Helicopters come and go in a steady stream, ferrying investigators, analysts, and senior officers who want to see the battlefield firsthand. Hendricks sits on an ammunition crate in the shade of a HESCO barrier, cleaning his rifle for the 3rd time in as many days. It doesn't need cleaning, he's already stripped and reassembled it twice, but his hands need something to do. Across from him, Wright is doing the same thing, methodically working a bore brush through his barrel with the focused intensity of a man trying not to think. The debriefings have been endless. CENTCOM, JSOC, CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. Everyone wants to hear the story, wants to understand how a dozen SEALs and a handful of SDF fighters held off a company-sized assault force. Rourke has spent more time in the command center than out of it, walking generals and colonels through the timeline, explaining the decisions, justifying the firepower. Not that there's much to justify. The after-action reports are clear. The Wagner Group initiated an unprovoked attack on a US position with overwhelming force. The American response was proportional to the threat. That the response resulted in the near-total annihilation of the attacking force is simply a function of capability. Still, the political ramifications are seismic. Moscow has issued carefully worded denials. Russia has no official military presence in that region of Syria. Any Russian citizens operating there are private individuals not under the command or control of the Russian government. It's the same script they've used before. Plausible deniability, even when the evidence says otherwise. Washington's response has been equally calculated. US forces acted in self-defense against an unprovoked attack by unidentified hostile forces. We will continue to defend our personnel and our partners against all threats. No mention of Wagner. No mention of Russia. Just a clear message. Attack Americans, and this is what happens. But everyone knows the truth. The intelligence recovered from the battlefield tells the story. Communications logs showing coordination with Russian military frequencies, rosters listing former Spetsnaz operators, equipment serial numbers traced back to Russian military stockpiles. The Wagner Group isn't just connected to Moscow, it's an extension of it. And the United States just killed over 200 of their fighters in a single night. Vasquez approaches, a bottle of water in each hand. He tosses one to Hendricks. You hear the latest? Hendricks catches the bottle, cracks it open. What now? CIA confirmed the identity of the Wagner commander. Guy named Yevgeny Prigozhin's lieutenant, one of his top field officers. Apparently, he was coordinating the whole operation from that command BTR we found. Vasquez takes a long drink. He's dead. Along with his entire command staff. Wright looks up from his rifle. Good. The word hangs in the air, simple and final. There's no celebration, no triumph. Just a quiet acknowledgement of a fact. The men who came to kill them are dead. That's all there is to it. Rourke emerges from the command center, squinting in the bright sunlight. He spots the team and walks over, his boots crunching on the gravel. He looks tired, deep circles under his eyes, his uniform rumpled, but there's a lightness in his step that wasn't there before. We're being rotated out, he announces. Helos are coming in 6 hours to take us back to base. Real beds, hot showers, and 48 hours of downtime before the next stop. There's a collective exhale from the team. Wright actually smiles. What about the investigation? Hendricks asks. Ongoing, but we're clear. CENTCOM reviewed everything. The radio intercepts, the engagement timeline, the proportionality of force. It's all by the book. Rourke pauses. Well, as by the book as something like this can be. Point is, we did our job. No one's questioning that. Vasquez stands, stretching. What about the wounded guy? The one we pulled out. Medevacs to Germany, then disappeared into the intelligence system. Last I heard, he's cooperating, giving up everything he knows about Wagner operations in Syria. Rourke's expression hardens. Not that it matters much. After this, I don't think Wagner's going to be operating anywhere near American forces for a long time. It's true, the Battle of Khasham, that's what they're calling it now, named after the nearby town, has fundamentally changed the calculus in Syria. For years, Wagner operated in a grey zone, testing boundaries, probing American resolve. They assumed that political considerations, rules of engagement, and fear of escalation would constrain the US response. They were wrong. The message has been sent loud and clear. American forces will defend themselves with overwhelming lethality. No warnings, no restraint, just the full weight of the most powerful military on earth. Hendricks thinks about the Russian voice on the radio, the one that ordered the attack with such confidence. He wonders what that man was thinking in his final moments, when the sky opened up and the world became fire. Did he understand what he'd walked into? Did he realize that he'd miscalculated so catastrophically? Probably not. Probably there wasn't time. The sun is setting now, painting the desert in shades of orange and red. In the distance, the burned-out hulks of Wagner vehicles are dark silhouettes against the horizon. Tomorrow, recovery teams will start hauling them away, erasing the physical evidence of what happened here, but the memory will remain. 203 enemy killed, 0 American casualties. It's a ratio that will be studied in military academies for years to come, a case study in the application of overwhelming firepower, a cautionary tale about what happens when you underestimate your opponent. But for Hendricks and the rest of the team, it's simpler than that. They heard Russian voices on the radio, they recognized the threat, they called for help, and when the Wagner Group came to kill them, they survived. That's the story. That's all it needs to be. Rourke gathers the team together one last time before they pack up. I know the past few days have been a lot. The debriefings, the questions, the attention. But I want you to know something. What we did here mattered. We held our ground, we protected our partners, and we sent a message that's going to echo a lot further than this desert. He looks at each of them in turn. I'm proud to serve with you. All of you. There's no cheering, no dramatic speeches, just nods of acknowledgement, quiet professionalism, the bond of men who face death together and come through the other side. As the sun dips below the horizon and the desert cools, Hendricks takes one last look at the battlefield. The fires are out now, the smoke has cleared. In a few weeks, the sand will cover the craters, the wind will erase the tracks, and the desert will reclaim this place. But what happened here will not be forgotten. The Wagner Group came to Khasham thinking they could overrun an American position with impunity. They were met with the full fury of American air power, and they were annihilated. It's a lesson written in blood and fire across the Syrian desert, a lesson that will be remembered by every mercenary, every proxy force, every adversary who thinks about testing American resolve. Attack us, and this is what happens: no mercy, no restraint, just overwhelming, devastating force. Hendrik slings his rifle and turns back toward the compound. The helicopters will be here soon. It's time to go home. Behind him, the desert is silent. The dead are buried or burned. The survivors, what few there are, have scattered to the winds. The Battle of Khasham is over, and the Americans won.